Петер, я знаю, что мы планируем в Украине провести курс рейв-картографии. Могли бы вы рассказать, что будет на этом курсе?
Better we know that we are planning this course of rave cartography in Ukraine. Could you tell us more of what is going to be during this course, please?
Yes. Well, cartography, we could say this is the last step in what we could call the foundation courses. And it has two main topics. And the first main topic is channels. If you ever have seen a human design polygraph, apart from centers, channels are the one thing that immediately catches your attention. And we could say there's a good reason for that. The four channels you have, describe a life force in you that independently from your will or thinking is alive. So in that sense, it is a concrete description of who you are always. The structure is relatively complex in that sense that we do not only have a certain number of channels, 36 to be precise, they are also grouped by what we call circuits. And each of the circuits serves, we could say, a bigger purpose. And within that bigger purpose, the channel is a specific task or a specific quality. And if we understand the channel, it's already very interesting. But if we understand the channel within the construct of circuit, we also gain a very deep evolutionary insight, because all of these things, of course, have evolved over time and describe all the subjects you can also observe in the world. So it is, on one side, it's very interesting for you personally, of course, and on the other side, it's very interesting for a collective perspective or point of view. Now, that teaching is always based on first understanding the channel as such, but then trying to understand the channel in a body graph. Because we have to see, you never can experience a channel alone. It is technically impossible, because you as the being you are a holistic whole. Analytically, I can separate in that holistic whole different elements, and then I describe a channel or a gate or a center. And this is the necessary first step in learning. But after that, we have to practice how to understand an element within the context of the whole. And this is always done by person-to-person work, we could say, where we look at the chart of this participant, at the channel we are talking about, and trying to understand what does it mean for that person. For example, if you have a channel, the true meaning of the channel will differ depending from your type. No? Just as a very simple example. The second main topic of cartography is profile. Profile looks very simple, as it is only 12 profiles, but if one goes deep, it is the one element in your life that does never change. It is the costume for an incarnation, and at the same time it describes abilities and necessities of your being. And for all higher analysis, without knowledge of profile and line keys, you cannot go on. So it is, in that sense, it is a foundation, but it is a foundation that can immediately put into practice, because if you just describe a profile to somebody, that somebody will realize that you know somebody, that you know something that is true, that this is really valuable information. I mean, I have given, 8,000 readings or something like that. And I very rarely had people saying, no, that's not true, that's not me. And so profile is the element you somehow recognize always, at least the conscious side of it. And contained in the profile, of course, are the line keys. They again are necessary for all finer or more sophisticated analysis later, maybe. Well, and then as we are finishing the foundation here, it's also about finishing what might be unclear. Right? So there could be from earlier stages some unclarities, maybe splits have been covered already or not. So it is also about a completion of a process that is supposed to lay the foundation for a practical application in your everyday life or for an ongoing professional education.
И как долго будет длиться этот курс? Сколько дней он занимает?
How long will this course last? How many days does it take?
This will be 8 days. You can imagine between rather 5 days for the channels and rather 3 days for profile around, with a 1 day break in the middle. And along the length of that seminar indicates that it is supposed to transmit a complete information.
И я также знаю, что Петер планирует проводить вот простые семинары, не связанные с профессиональным обучением в дизайне. Какие семинары сейчас Петер рассматривает, какие темы были бы ему интересны и когда это может произойти в ближайшее время?
Peter, we also know that you are planning some seminars not connected to this professional education, but some general topics. So maybe there are some topics that you already think about, and maybe you could tell us something about them.
First of all, yes, it is really one of my pleasures and hopes to create seminars. They are not part of the normal professional education, but bring very interesting topics to people. They are just in their personal process, but want to learn more and want to apply the knowledge in the different fields of their life. So this autumn we have made a seminar about relationships and another one about PHS, which is kind of the basic health system contained in human design. And I dare say both of them have been very transformative and definitely for me very satisfying. And a next project which might take place in spring or in next autumn, we will see. That would be a 2 days workshop about planetary qualities. It is a strange thing that we use planets, but know relatively little about them. And again, of course, there we have to, we cannot avoid looking at astrology. Astrology having a vast tradition about the meaning of planets. But also, if you look at the old meaning, then Saturn would be something very bad for you, and Jupiter would be something very good for you. And of course, this is within a modern view of things. You cannot keep these perspectives. They may be easy to apply, but as generalizations, they are of course wrong. Each planet has a specific quality. It brings you a specific ability to that gate where it is. And and the same, of course, is true for transits. It makes a big difference if you have a transit of Jupiter in a gate or of Saturn. So my aim is to bring together informations from different sources, and that, let's say, from a modern point of view, and that means a non-judgmental in the sense of this is a good and this is a bad planet. These are perspectives. They come from a time of very simple thinking. We do not need to continue. So one source of information for me is simply the astronomical one. After all, we are talking about bodies, mainly. We are also talking about the nodes of the moon, but mainly about bodies. And they have their quality. They have a size, they have a color, they have a history of discovery, and all of these things tell us already something about a planet. Secondly, of course, there is basic keys from astrology. I tend to use the most simple ones. You do not write a book about the 3 or 4 basic keys in order to work with that. And then there is a specialty of human design. There exists a book in human design that is called the Rave I Ching. And this is a very sophisticated book that contains texts about the 384 lines. So this is not necessarily something for beginners. But in that book is a lot of information about planetary qualities in an indirect way. And as it is, the lines of the Rave I Ching I really can call one of my specialties. I have written a very huge book about it. It's over 600 pages in German language, and in 1 or 2 years it will be available in Russian language. So it's in the process of translation. And this is like a treasure about planetary qualities. And if you put all of that together, and if you then try to discriminate between the black and the red side, then you get a very interesting picture about planetary qualities. And again, one can exercise that by looking at body graphs of participants. So let's say we have a certain concept about what Saturn as activation means, and then we have a dialogue with a participant, preferably some who has already lived some years, not a very young one, about the specific experience of Saturn in that gate. And this will, on one side of course, it will confirm the main keys, but it will also add, out of personal experience, to a more differentiated knowing and feeling at the same time. How is the planet, what is it really bringing to a chart?
И я также знаю, что Петер провел когда-то колоссальную работу, в течение нескольких лет проводил чтение транзитного поля. И поскольку я также знаю, что у Петера очень практичный дизайн, будет ли он использовать вот эти свои наработки, да, которые он взял из опыта в этом семинаре, который будет связан с планетами?
Peter, as you said, she also knows you've done a great job, and for during several years, you've been reading this transit field and examining it. Will you be using the information, because you know that you're a very practical person, in this seminar?
Yes, of course. I mean, transits have always fascinated me because, of course, if you look at the transit field, to a certain degree, you look into the future. You want to look into the future, and the beautiful thing is that by that you can test your hypothesis. So you have a certain concept about a planet and the gate the planet will go to, and then of course you try to imagine what will it mean on collective level, what will it mean on personal level, and then you wait and see, because you can observe it. And out of that, this is what I would call a scientific approach in the best sense. And out of that, the transits have been really one of my greatest teachers since many years. I started to write transit forecasts for a journal in German language, I think in 1998. And then for some period there was a German-speaking human design radio, and I made daily 10 minutes about the transit field. Well, if you take that 10 minutes each day for 7 years, you can imagine that this has somehow deeply impacted me and my system and how I think and how I see. And out of that, many additional observations come you cannot find in the textbook, because it is life in the end is the greatest teacher. And if you look at life and at the transit field at the same time, you see the connection.